Hello, welcome to Sonic Vision Studio. My name is Sam. I'm an Australian living here in Marseille for 8 years now, and in March 2020, this year, I decided to take the plunge and build a recording studio inside this rehearsal studio complex. Pour mes amis français, oui, je parle français. Si vous voulez que je re-enregistre cette vidéo, mais dans la langue française, dites-moi, laissez un commentaire et je vais refaire la vidéo pour vous. So, this is the studio. It's tiny, but I love it so far. It's essentially a room, or two rooms actually, built within a room. You have the main work area used for composing, recording, mixing, etc. And a cabin or booth live room for recording voices, guitar cabinets, acoustic guitars, percussion, and recapturing sounds. In fact, there are 12 microphones in this booth ready to record at the drop of a hat. The only other part of the studio is this foyer storage area, which acts as an airlock between the outside and the two rooms of the studio. Anyway, before we rewind and have a look at how this room looked the day I got the key, I just wanted to mention that on this channel I'll be doing some music and recording related videos, maybe some product reviews, tips and tricks for recording. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, don't forget to subscribe and like and leave a comment down below. So in February I was reading online about this rehearsal studio. And at the bottom of their description, they said that they had permanent rooms available for music teachers and post-production studios. I dropped by that afternoon, they showed me a few of the rooms, and they assured me that I could build whatever I liked inside the room, and that drilling into the floor was fine. Very different to what would have been permitted in Australia when you rent a space. Anyway, I took a few days to think it over, but I think I had made up my mind when I saw the room. I'm situated right underneath the reception of the rehearsal studio complex, so lucky for me I've got Wi-Fi included. I signed the rental agreement, took some measurements of the space, and I went home to start designing the studio. I had two options. Option number one room with everything in it. Essentially a shared control room and recording space. This optimizes the space and allows microphones to hear a larger room. Or option two, a more traditional concept of a separate control room and live room. I went for the second option because I wanted to record loud guitar amps without blasting my ears and have more isolation for vocalists. There are pros and cons with both options, but because it's such a small room, I'm happy with the choice I made. The studio is really tiny. It's 3.6 meters by 4 meters. That's 11.8 feet by 13.1. The concrete ceiling at the top is about 3.3 meters high or 10.8 feet. I designed the floor plan of the internal walls. The concept is a room inside a room where the new internal walls don't touch the existing walls or ceiling, leaving a 2 centimeter gap, just under an inch. Even the walls between the cabin and the control room have this 2 centimeter space. There are virtually no parallel walls either to avoid flutter echo. I started measuring and taping the floor so it would be easy for anyone to follow. Then this happened.
Français.
Lockdown in France. So we were stuck at home for a month, but in mid-May, I could get back into the studio to keep working. The main construction happened over 3 days. I had 3 guys come in, and together we put the walls and the ceiling up. The basic structure was there, but actually I hadn't ordered enough metal ceiling joists. So I had to wait 2 more weeks to finish the ceiling in the control room. Other than the 3 days with those guys, I had a friend come and help me put up the heaviest MDF panels on the control room ceiling After that, I did virtually everything else on my own. This was really hard and time consuming, but ultimately less expensive. The wall construction is the same throughout. An 18mm thick MDF panel, 0.7 of an inch, 100mm thick insulation, which is about 4 inches, and a 10mm thick MDF panel, 0.4 of an inch on the other side. I chose cotton and hemp insulation for health and environmental reasons. The sonic transference and fire rating and the price was similar to fiberglass or rock wool here in France, so for me it was a no-brainer. One thing I wanted to do here was have a ventilation system in the vocal booth. I built a system with server room fans that run from a USB adapter. It circulates enough air to keep a vocalist comfortable while the maze of turns and insulation stops any sound transference from the fan noise. The fan at the bottom pushes new air in, and the one at the top sucks the existing air out. I have a hole for cables and power going between the live and control room, but have plenty of insulation jammed in there to reduce sound transfer. There's another hole next to my amps for power and speaker cables, guitar cables running behind the walls. Here in the control room, I wanted to have as much symmetry as possible around the mix position, and all the first reflection points are covered with absorbing material. If you don't know what that means, you could Google first reflection points for mixing. Essentially, the speakers have a direct sound that travels directly from the speaker to your ear. Then you have sound from the sides, the top, and the back of the speaker that reflect onto the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Here in this studio, these first reflection points are not covered with hard surfaces, but with soft insulation covered fabric. The walls directly behind the desk are completely covered in fabric instead of hard panels. The control room and live room cabin have ceiling clouds, basically an acoustic absorption panel suspended from the ceiling. The cabin has a rubber floor as well. This helps with isolation as well as reducing noise. If a singer or musician stomp or drag their feet, that noise doesn't get picked up by the microphone. Unfortunately, there's no toilet or kitchen or band hangout room here in this studio, but luckily in this rehearsal studio complex just upstairs, there's a bar, cafe, lounges, ping pong, and Wi-Fi. Well, there's not much more to tell you other than the next video will be a tour of the studio showing you some of the gear and how I use it. A little bit more about the construction of the studio, some of the sound diffusion here in the control room. I'll also talk to you about how I record drum kits. It's definitely possible here as well. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment, ask a question. I promise I will respond to everyone. Cheers from Sonic Vision Studio.